Oh, by the way, I might need to leave at 11. I didn't have the confirmation, but I might have a meeting at that time. But I will try to keep the window open anyway. If any of the
Sure.
students, please, if you have any questions, just also send me an email later or something like that. I'll try to be keeping an eye on anyway. Okay, it's recording.
I'll keep it.
Good luck.
Thanks. All right. So yesterday we talked a lot about Node.js and how to implement WebSockets and the HTML side of things, like how to get the front end to communicate with the back end. Today we're going to do something similar, but more in a game, environment, game type environment. And because I like to keep it all within one programming language, I chose to do this with Phaser. Though there are Unity plugins that support WebSockets. They haven't been updated in a while, but what else is new for Unity networking? I think that it would work pretty much the same thing. You would just use C#. But Phaser, I think, is a very good and pretty mature JavaScript front-end WebGL canvas rendering system. So it can render on the canvas if you're on an old browser for some reason, but it can also render in WebGL for better performance and some more advanced features. So today, first what I'll be doing is I'll be setting up a very simplified version of Bomberman, which is probably, we talked about it yesterday, but something that you're familiar with. Going to set it up in Phaser. I had animations and stuff attached to it. We're not going to do that now because it's not super important for the functionality that we'll be doing. So I'm going to introduce some semi-basic Phaser functionality, like how to set it up, how to get it rendering, how the scenes work, and how you can transition between them maybe later on as well. This is all stuff you can find in their pretty excellent example database / documentation. So I'm not going to go into that too much. You just have to believe me, and probably when you see the code, if you're familiar with other programming frameworks other than Unity, you'll think like, oh yeah, that makes sense. As soon as everything works single player, we're going to transform it into a multiplayer game, and that's also when we start building the server side of things. And going to decide which functionality you have to sync across clients, and that is something that you'll probably run into during networking as well. It's probably more than you think. Like there's more states that you have to sync than you initially thought. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of emitting and broadcasting and making sure that we don't do anything that doesn't need doing. Because you'll often, especially if you have you render at 60 frames per second. So if you want to have 4 people moving around the screen continuously, for example, then at least that is already 60 times 4 times however many bytes it takes to sync their location. And it's not super big, but you want to limit that as much as you can, especially because it's all TCP. What we won't be doing is no server-side cheat detection. Could be, of course, in and of itself. However, there are some pretty simple things that you can do to add something that people won't be able to cheat. For example, in this version, you'll be able to place several bombs on top of each other, which is technically not possible. You can very easily keep track of the grid position on the server side as well, and when a bomb explodes, remove it from there as well. So you can just say you can't place one here. There's already one here. Stuff like that is relatively easy. Not too much gameplay. You'll be able to place bombs, but I haven't implemented anything. Well, I have in my own version, but nothing about the way the bombs work in Bomberman, where they spread out until they hit a wall and stuff. Not really the part of this, because the only thing that will be syncing, spoiler, is when and where a bomb is placed. And some in-depth Phaser functionality, none of the rendering optimizations do later on and stuff, but not super important for this because it'll work pretty much out of the box. So good morning, Josh. We're gonna make Bomberman for copyright reasons and also because it's multiplayer, right? It's pretty clever. I've not uploaded this code yet to GitHub, but afterwards there's a link in the sheets to my GitHub page, and I'll be uploading this, the chat server, and the Bomberman server to there, and front end actually. I'll be using Kenny's assets for Bomberman, which saves me a lot of drawing, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. It makes a prototype project look a lot better. In this chat client, where we're using jQuery and semantic UI, which are both not going to be in the new version. I'm just going to quickly copy this socket CDN because that is something we will be using. Actually, something I wanted to mention as well, is that I'm not sure if I have it installed here. No, I don't. There is, if you're doing just front-end development, there is Adobe bought a oh boy, apparently it's becoming defunct. Oh, don't crash. Oh God, Windows is crashing. I don't know, can you guys still hear me, see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, my Windows crashed. So I can't do anything. Nothing's working.
Oh,
Great.
have you tried Control-Delete?
Oh, can't close the window either. All right, I'll be right back probably. Crap.
Oh, try Control-Delete, open the task manager, and see if you can close the Explorer exe. Yeah.
No, that's not crashing. It's one of the Firefox windows.
Oh, so try to right-click that and go to the process and stop the process.
Yeah, but then I'll be gone for a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, see you in a second.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
Yeah, because it's gonna close Blackboard for him. Maybe he should be using Edge to open Blackboard. So now Linux users are thriving with this. Yeah, as you see. Edge gang. Do you have a fun anecdote? Yeah, I have plenty. Which one do you want to listen to? About what? I've heard a lot of people saying good things about Edge, to be fair. So I don't like, it's not like IE, because IE had a lot of weird stuff. But I think they did the right thing. It seems like they just started over again. It seems like they are also using, I'm not sure if it's Chromium. Yeah. Yeah. I think, I don't know. This is probably some people with money that are saying like, no, we need the same icon because we spent money doing that icon. I cannot hear Ron. Can you guys hear him?
Hello.
Oh, okay, I can
Yeah,
hear you. Yeah.
it took a bit. Crap, no, I lost the chat. Anyway.
No, come back.
Yeah, no, I think Firefox crashed. Thank you.
Cool.
Firefox crashed my Windows when I tried to. You guys can see, I can't see the screen yet. Oh yeah, cool. And the WebStorm was using like 6 gigs, but that's not super weird. Let me actually check. I don't know what this computer. Oops. How do you go to like properties of this computer now? System settings, right?
Yeah, you could just type Windows, type the Windows key and write it, so it should find it also.
System information, yes. Yes. Because I think this has quite. This is not my computer. I borrowed this. And I think it has quite a bit of RAM, so I should see that somewhere, right? Memory. Oh yeah, you're right. You can see it in Task Manager. Man, it's been a while. RTX 2080. Yeah, that shouldn't be the problem. Yeah, 64 gigs. Well, then don't bitch about 2 gigs, computer. It's not my computer. It's not flexing if it's not yours, right? All right. Well, whatever. I've been using brackets, but apparently it's been bought by Adobe, and they're apparently ending support for it, which is, kind of their thing lately. But as long as they make it open source, it's probably good. The cool part about brackets is if you're doing front end stuff, as you probably have seen in advanced web and other web courses, update your SSL connection brackets. Is that you can. Oh, actually, that is very nice. They moved everything to VS Code. Yeah, they're saying that they're doing that. I mean, the functionality within brackets where you can live see your changes, it's been around for ages, but they just built it in such a nice package, which was nice. So you don't have to make your own little web server when you're testing. But I guess we're beyond that. We're going to have to make our own little web server when testing. I'm just going to start a new project. An empty project. Desktop. Bomberman. Yeah, you can do it in this window. Usually I would create a client and a server side, but not immediately because we won't need a server, but because we'll be our own little brackets, I'll immediately create a simple server. I'm just going to run through the same parts I did yesterday. So go to the server, npm node package manager init. Bomberman server is actually a better name. The rest is fine. Link package.json. Gonna change this to start, which is gonna run node index.js. Now let's create an index.js. Also add install express and socket.io. Save them both to the package. There they are. Cool. Coolio Iglesias. Now. Oh yeah. Hey, yeah. I'm just going to copy this from the other thing that we made because I don't want to redo that. You've seen it yesterday. I usually don't use the terminal in my IDE either, but on Windows it seems like a good alternative. Yeah, I think this is all that I need for now. Show the npm scripts. Start it. Listening. New window. Actually, new private window. Cool. Well, this is actually correct because there's nothing there yet. There's no index file. Whoop. Let's do that actually right now. Create an index.html, and in that, it's just empty now. Yeah. We're going to include some stuff. First, the doc type. Some very basic setup. Very minimalistic HTML. Bomberman. Yes, cool. I'm going to initially load socket.io and Phaser, and I've got the distributions right here. These two little boys. So this is socket.io. I'm using CDNs right now, but what you could do, if you just go to this in your browser, you can download them, and you can also, well, I can show you actually. If you go to this in your browser, it's just like a minified JavaScript file, you can just save it if you like to clients, make a new directory maybe called lib, and in here save it as socket.io min.js, whatever. Yeah, like this. And in fact, it's usually better to include libraries in their own directory. And then what you can do is just include it locally. Then you're not dependent on any CDN. Is lib. Oh, cool, autocomplete. Socket.io. This one. Like that. It's the same thing. And then you have it locally. Shouldn't make a difference. But oftentimes you can include a CDN version that updates automatically, which might not be something you like because it could definitely break functionality as well. I think this is it pretty much for the HTML file for now. What we're going to do is we're going to create several JavaScript files. Isn't the CDN version also more likely cached? Yep, that is correct. Like, it's easier for browsers to cache, but I mean, browsers nowadays are smart enough to cache basically everything. Everything that you include, they're pretty clever about that. But yeah, remote stuff is more easily cached, especially images and JavaScript and CSS. Well, I'm going to make a main.js like this. And in here, we're going to create a new game object. And this is where we'll introduce Phaser. As you can see, it all has a bit of a namespace. So everything that has to do with Phaser begins with Phaser, like this, Phaser dot. In C#, you would do something like using Phaser, and you won't have to do that anymore. Not in JavaScript. Though there are ways to simplify this. I actually like that it's separated because I often like to name variables things that are already existing in the namespace of Phaser. So in this way, there is no overlap. And it's set the type to Phaser automatic. Actually, that's probably capitalized. Auto. Let me check if there's autocomplete if I download it locally. In fact, I have a version somewhere here. Because that is something that is actually quite nice to have autocomplete when you're doing development. Lib, Phaser. It's probably a slightly older version, but doesn't matter much. Yeah, instead of this, include lib /Phaser /Phaser with arcade physics. Yeah, that is something you'll see as well. So Phaser has a bunch of semi-optimizations. Oh, I didn't know actually that you can download CDN libraries in WebStorm. That would actually be better. But then again, I like hosting my own files, so I'm 100% sure what I'm including. It's just for fast development. It's not necessary, but let's continue with the Phaser setup. I think the height and width kind of speak for themselves, but feel free to check me on this later. I just know the size of the tiles that I'll be using later. And so I've calculated this beforehand to create like a replica of Bomberman. So the physics, we're going to default to arcade physics, which are not super complex, but we don't need super complex physics. It has a bunch of different physics engines. Some are more suited towards like Angry Birds type simulation. Some are more suited towards, well, just overlap and simple things. And that is the one that we'll be using, the arcade physics one, which I think we can also configure it here immediately and just say gravity on the y-axis is 0, because otherwise all our objects would fall down continuously. And like this, we're saying, yeah, use the arcade physics engine, and yeah, don't do anything with it. Like, don't just give us the overlaps and stuff. The scene, here's where you'll give it a scene to start with. You'll have to, if you have multiple scenes in your game, this is where you can load them as well. You can give it a URL and whatever, but that's not necessary. All of this information is, by the way, on the Phaser documentation page. It's I'll look it up later, but believe me when I say, like, I've delved through this so many times by now. It's not super complex. Actually, we can close these for now. So you'll have to include each and every script that you'll be making. In this case, this one is in js/main.js. And if in main.js you are using some other script, for example, we'll be creating a scene, actually, we'll be making a scene right now, js/scenes/ game. Oh, yes, actually, thanks. I clicked create directory. Luckily, it's smart enough to know that I'm an idiot. And here we'll be creating a class. Yes, JavaScript has classes now, which extends a phaser.scene. I know that JavaScript not having classes is a huge deal for a lot of people. Oh, yeah, you're right, JS. Dang it, so close. Just move it here, refactor it. Delete this. If it refactors, it'll probably automatically include the right one as well. Scene/game. Include it immediately, because otherwise I'll forget. Yeah, this is basically Java in JavaScript. However, it'll immediately be different, because like a constructor in Java would be something like this. No such thing in JavaScript, though you can kind of do it, but it just has a function called constructor. That's it. This is, yeah, we'll be creating a game scene, so you have to give it a key in which it can be later on switched to and recognized. However, we'll only be making one scene to start with, so this is actually not super important, but this is one way to know what, to have you be able to switch between scenes. Dang it. All right. You'll see that, yeah, Phaser is initializing correctly. It's using WebGL and WebAudio, and apparently I'm using version 3.21, which is not the latest version, but it's fine for us. And you can see it already like generates just a black window because we're not doing anything with it. And if I check the body, it created a canvas to render to. Slightly too big for if I still want to keep the console open. There we go, perfect. All right, so Phaser has a bunch of built-in functions that are called under game scene, which will basically be overloading. There is the create function, which is run as soon as the scene is, well, loaded and created. Which makes sense, right? It's run after the constructor. There's the preload function. We'll also be needing that. This is where you'll be preloading all your assets. You don't have to. You can also do that in create. But if you do it in preload, it will be included to the total load time of your application. So if you put it in preload, then if you want to display a loading bar before your game starts, all the preloads are run beforehand. So if you want to include some assets, then you can relatively easily. I am also going to copy the assets that I already have. Already there. Just call them assets. Oh, I also have a account. Good, because I wanted to get rid of that error. There's some fonts that I won't be using. Some input. Yeah, in my version, I made a little arcade-like input where you can put in the 4 letters of your name, but not going to do that. I made sorry, I made a map in Tiled, which is something you're probably familiar with. It's the little tile-based drawing engine. If you look at this, this is just. All right. See you later, Josh. Josh, I think this is being recorded, right? You can check later if you like. These are the layers. It's very similar to other tile engines. It just says like, hey, this is a layer, background. These are all the tiles there. This is the layer walls. These are all the tiles and on the locations. Same for the debris, which I won't be using actually for now. And these are the spawn locations, which are also something I won't be using for now. And it's using this tile sheet. Phaser has built-in support for tiled. And if you, yeah, I think tiled editor is what it's called. Mapeditor.org, yeah, tiled flexer. It's free. And it's actually quite nice and very good. You can build multiple layers on top of each other. You can put objects there. You can mark stuff as spawn points. Very nice. I think famously used by stuff like Hollow Knight used it. Shovel Knight used it. I think all the knights basically used it. Yeah, while we're at it, we might as well actually load that tile map. So this is where it kind of differs from a lot of C# stuff. Loading is all done via internal methods. A scene has a load function method, well, this is actually an object, and you tell it what type of thing to load. So you put this.load.image. You give it a name of what you want to call it internally, and then you give it a location of where it can find that file. So yeah, we're loading the tiles via from the location asset.tiles.sokoban. Sokoban is, by the way, another type of game where you slide blocks around, which I'll be abusing for my Bomberman clone. We'll be loading the tile map, tiled JSON. We're going to call it map internally, and it's located here assets maps Bomberman.json. If we don't load the tile map here, the tiles first, it will load the map, but you won't be able to see anything because it doesn't have the image in RAM at the time of displaying. Anything else we need for this? I don't think so. And then in create is where it's called when the scene is actually displayed. So I'm just going to copy this for my example. We're going to create a new map here by using this.make a new tile map. And the key map is the same key that we used here to load it. So if you preloaded it, you can just use it here. You can also like load it here directly, but it's better to preload stuff and then to use it when you need it. We have to add the tile set to the map as well. We've preloaded it as tiles. We're going to call it Sokoban because that's what it's called internally in the JSON file. And I think this has been deprecated in newer versions. We create a static layer called background, which is like the background is the name of the layer in the JSON file. So when you create it in tiled, and we'll be using the tiles that we loaded here, start at 0, 0. This has been renamed to just create layer in newer versions, I think. All right, no errors. That's good. Physics at blah, 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 blah. Cool. We might want to set up collisions as well already. Why not? So actually this method returns something, namely the layer that I just created. Layer is a type of object. I don't know if we can. Oh yeah, you can. Cool. It might be minified. No, it's not. Cool. So yeah, you can actually just check the code and see what it does because, well, JavaScript by default is open sourced. Even if you minify it, though, it's pretty much unreadable. But yeah, you can see it's called on the tile map and it returns a static tile map layer, which has a bunch of functionality attached to it. So what we're doing here, set collision 98. This is a workaround that I use for this because we don't need to collide with anything on every layer. We just need to collide with some things. And in this case, I know that 98 is the number of the tile that we'll be using to collide with, which is the little block tile. So here we're just saying like, hey, only 98 is collidable. That's basically it. All right, let me to show you if this works. Let me say here the game has a scene called game scene, and well, here we are already. It displays the entire map, so you can tell like these are the Kenny assets that I'm abusing a little bit. There are actually probably better assets to use for this because this implies depth, which there isn't, but whatever. It looks nice. If I remove the background layer, you can see that, yeah, I have just one layer. It doesn't have any collisions. It's just all of them are the ground tiles. That's why I don't do anything with them ever. It's just for show. Right, so for now, this is enough. We have a map. It has collisions under little red tiles, but yeah, there's nothing yet to use them on. So I'm going to create a new directory called game objects, and in that directory I'm going to create a new object called player.js, and I'm going to be going no capitals actually. Dang, that's what I get for switching between programming languages like every other day. Lately I've been doing a lot of C++ for Unreal, and they like capitalization, like uppercase letters everywhere. Like too much almost. Anyway, I'm going to be going over this a little bit quicker because there's a lot of stuff we need to cover. If there's anything that I'll be talking out what I'm doing, but if there's anything you don't get, just let me know, raise your hand or send a message in the chat. So what I'm doing here is I'm extending specifically the sprite from the arcade physics one, which implies that well, it will automatically work with everything that has arcade physics attached to it. When constructing it, positioning it at 0, 0, I'm using the player sprite that I haven't loaded in yet. Got to keep that in mind. And by default, frame 52 of that style sheet. And if you look at the style sheet, sprites, where is it? It's probably included actually in the. Oh yeah, there it is. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so this is 59, probably just a guy standing there. One of these two. Looks a bit Mario-esque, come to think of it. Actually, this is enough for now. I just want to see if it loads in correctly. So in the game, I have to preload the player, and I'm going to use not the original Sokoban, but I made one that is slightly smaller tile sheets because I thought it was too big. I'm gonna load in the player. Yeah, call it player, and I'm only gonna load in. Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna load in this entire sprite sheet, called it player, but we'll only be using it for animations and stuff. But actually, we won't be animating it, so it doesn't matter much. We'll only have a static image of frame 52. But if you were to animate it, this is where you'll be doing it because you're loading it in as a style sheet, and animations are added by ranges of frames if it's a frame-based animation, not a tween. Don't forget to also include it here. Game objects, player. Typo, oh yeah. I imagine it's a typo because it's a non-existing word. And if we were to add the player to the scene now, let player equals new player, pass in this current scene so it can attach itself. Then this .add.existing player will actually add it to the scene. This is basically the same as add child in the GXP engine, if you recall from way back when. Yeah, there he is, top left corner. I don't know if you can see him. He's kind of like showing his little face there. That's because we haven't given it a position yet. And like I mentioned yesterday, it's slightly based on Flash, which means everything has an X and a Y position. And by doing it like this, X and Y is 90, it'll be nice and on somewhat of a spawn position. You can also obviously do that in the player itself, but for now. Right. Let's add some functionality to the player as well, because we want it to be able to move around. We want it to be able to place a bomb, and we want it to be able to die. These are things that you should not take out of context. Anyway, there is a relatively easy way to add simple WASD movements by adding supported keys. Well, this is the way that I did it. I created a little map called the keys, which I've named up, down, left, and right. Very original. WSAD, which sounds weird if you say it like that. Everybody says WASD, but whatever. I'm not sure why. Yeah, up, down, left, right made sense in an order. I usually like everything alphabetically, so down should be all the way at the top, up should be all the way at the bottom, but let's not do that right now. I'm adding a speed, which will be, usually I do it in multiples of the tile size, which is about 64 times 3. And this will be the speed per second. We're adding a velocity. This is all stuff that you might have already done in the GXP engine as well, where you have to build your own stuff. You don't have to do this, by the way. You can also use the physics engine itself, and we will be using that for a bunch of stuff. But in this case, I like to keep track of the velocity myself, because then it's easier to stop it when like a remote player dies later on. There's a pre-update method. Like this, which is called before the update, as you may have guessed. Going to do two things. We're going to set the velocity. This is the one that we created ourselves. Reset it, sets it back to 0. And we're going to set the velocity to 0, which is actually the physics running on this current sprite. We're going to set that to 0 as well. And then I have a little switch case here with, am I using the hash move? Oh yeah, this is usually where you play the animations. This.play walk plus left, right, up, down, whichever one you want to play. Not going to do any of the animations. Has move false. Yeah, if any of the keys that we just defined here are pressed, we're going to move in that direction. Up means y minus 1, down means y equal 1, left, etc., etc. We're going to run some simple 2D math on it. Velocity, you're going to normalize it first, then scale it to the speed. So we can't like speed up a little bit when we're moving diagonally, which is a thing that a lot of people forget initially. And then when we've calculated that, we're going to apply it. We're going to set the velocity to what we've calculated just now. And I'm going to do this as well. Oops. We're going to check if we have moved. Actually, this does not have to be a local. It can just be a local variable. There's no need for it to be a property. We're going to emit an unmoved, and we're going to give the current X and Y position. And this emit, it has nothing to do with sockets. Just JavaScript likes to communicate through events, and they're very fast. They're basically the same speed as calling a function directly. But when you emit something, this is built into Phaser, by the way. JavaScript has a slightly different way of handling events. But Phaser, when you emit something, that means that you can listen to it in other places. For example, we've created a player here. And before adding it to the map, well, it doesn't matter actually, but we're gonna listen to it like player dot on moved, which has a x and a y variable. And then yeah, we're just gonna output this. So this is a lot of code that I've written in one site, in one big swoop. So it's probably good to test it. Player moved to like this, and y. Get rid of those squiggly lines, please. Oh, error. This body is null. Oh yeah, I know what happened. It gives me an error because I'm trying to do something with the physics pre-update here, set velocity, but I forgot to add the player to the physics engine. So by adding it to the scene, you will only add the sprite and the rendering that is attached to it. But you also have to add it to the physics engine. It's actually quite good that I forgot, because this is something I wanted to talk about anyway. This is all because, well, JavaScript obviously isn't as fast as Unity or C++ or whatever. So if you don't need physics on an object, just don't add it to the engine, and it won't run any physics on it. Right. There we go. And I'm pressing WASD, and you can see in the console that I've moved to certain positions. And the cool thing is it doesn't update unless I moved, which is something that'll come in later. This is also why I included this little variable has moved, because otherwise you'll always be calling on moved even if you haven't done anything, and that is kind of, well, you don't need that. You only need to know when it has moved. Yeah. As you can see, I can just simply walk through the walls right now, which is not something I want. So I'm also going to add a collision. Doesn't matter if I add it first. I don't think it matters. Physics.add.collider. So that basically means that, hey, the player and this.layer walls can collide. That's it. Now I can't move through the walls. I think this is a very neat way of handling this. Without, it's not as as user friendly as other ways of doing it, but I do think this is like it's on the edge of being like optimized and just like user friendly, because you don't want to do anything that you won't need. So I'm just going to make this a local variable as well. In fact, I think I can make it a const. There we go. All right, so movements, updates on movements, and collisions with walls and stuff. Any questions so far? Except for what did I miss? I don't think I have time to go over it again. Obviously, I'll be uploading this code later on when we're done with it, but for now, this is, yeah. If there aren't any questions, I'm going to move on. I'm going to add some extra inputs to, first I'm going to be able to have the guy place a bomb. Those listens are all loosely typed. What do you mean by that? You mean these on type functions? Yes. They are loosely typed in the way that this is always a string, as in yeah, you need to use a string as a key, but the callback function can basically be defined however you like. This works the same with the sockets, by the way. So if you have multiple variables, you can just include them like that. It doesn't just expect an object. You can put in whatever you like, just a number, a string, an object. You can pass in whatever, because it'll be serialized anyway. So yeah, in that way they are loosely typed. You can make them do whatever you like. I usually only give the information that is actually needed in that point. Yeah, like this X and this Y. What if you put in something that does not exist? Then it will be, well, there's two ways. Like JavaScript has two things that don't exist. You have null, But that is actually an object or anything that is not a primitive that is not yet initialized. But you also have an undefined. That is something that just does not exist in JavaScript. So there's a difference. And that is actually something from, that has to exist because of loosely typed things. So if I were to print like console.log here, QWERTY, that would actually print undefined or just give a huge error. Because, I've never defined this variable QWERTY. I've never said let QWERTY or const QWERTY or whatever. So, and that'll be an undefined. And if I were to pass this in, it would say undefined. But instead of breaking, it would just pass in an undefined. And then as soon as you try to do something with it, it will probably break. But you can just pass undefined as if it were a variable. Or actually a constant. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Cool. Actually, I'm going to continue by giving the player the place bomb method. I'm going to define this as an arrow function, which means, if you remember from yesterday, instead of doing it like this, place bomb like that, I'm going to do it like this. And I think if you're using objects, it actually still makes a difference. If you're doing it like this still has the context. So this.x is actually the player.x and stuff, same as here. But I think if you're doing it in a constructor, you don't have to do this anymore. But this is something left over from my React type days. When I place a bomb, I'm just going to emit something called onBombPlaced and pass along this.x and this.y. So I'm trying to place a bomb at this current position. And I want to do that when I press a button, input.keyboard.addKey. Like you can see, like you can chain this all together. This.scene.input.keyboard.addKey. Let's just press the E button. .on down. So when it goes down, just call the this.placeBomb. That is actually it. And we can also listen to it here. Player.on. What did I call it again? OnBombPlaced. Should probably find a better naming scheme because now it reads like OnBombPlaced. It could just probably be bomb placed at this point. There's a typo. Oh, let me check. Just gonna finish this real quick. Console.log player placed bomb. There. Wish there was an easier way. Actually, there is, but I don't like it. Bomb place bomb. Oh, he might. Yep. That's not good. Yeah, that won't work. Seems fine. Oh yeah, now it highlights. Refresh, around, player move, press E, placed bomb. Obviously it doesn't do anything yet. But yeah. But actually we can make it do something. Because why not? So this is something I advocated for when I taught game programming as well, is that if a player places a bomb, you usually want to add it to the scene, but I don't think that is something that the coach should handle in player. Which is why I really like the way of using events and stuff in this case, because now I can just add a spawn bomb method to. Oh god, it crashed again. Oh no, it's back. Thank God. Panic. To the game scene, and yeah, well, we probably first have to create a bomb. Don't take that out of context. Bomb.js. It's going to be pretty much the same thing, but it's just going to be a sprite. It doesn't have any physics attached to it. Extends, phaser, game objects. Hey, there's the autocomplete. Sprites. constructor scene X and Y. This is something that I want to do myself. Oh, great! My neighbors are making a mess outside. What does a bomb do? Well, it explodes at some point. And when it does, we just remove it from the scene. You could play a nice little animation, but in this case, it doesn't do anything other than exist. Scene, we're going to place it on X and Y. And oops, it's going to be called the bomb sprite. Now I have to not forget to also load the bomb sprite, which I have a special sprite for it. Asset/sprite/bomb/bomb. As you may have guessed, there were different versions of the bomb that I've been using. All right, for now, yeah, we can just create. Let's bomb a new bomb with this scene. And this dot add existing bomb to make it visible. I used to add it to the physics engine as well, so you couldn't walk through them, because that is actually in Bomberman. You can't walk through the bombs. After you've placed one, you're basically set with it. Not going to do that right now, but if you're actually making Bomberman, keep that in mind. And don't forget to include it in the main file. Right, so if I press E, well, nothing happens yet, but place bomb. So in the game, on bomb placed, I'm just going to call this dot spawn bomb on X and Y. And we can remove this now. See if it works. Oh, well, kind of works. It's all the way up there. XY bomb. What did I do wrong? Why is it not... Do I have to add it to... Oh, wait. I forgot to actually give it the X and Y position. Whoops. So then it just default to 0. Yep. You can see it places it on top of the player, which is actually not really where we want them. We kind of want them to be on the grid. And to do that, I might as well do that right now. Instead of doing X, I know for a fact that the tiles are actually 64 pixels, so we can just floor it, X divided by 64 times 64. Yeah. And I think there is a bit of a, we'll see. This one as well, floor. Not math F. That's Unity. It's like so ingrained in my fingers. Like I keep typing it out. 64. Yep. So if I place it now, it's a little bit far to the left, and that is because the sprite is actually not origin around the center. To fix that easily, I've calculated it beforehand. I'm just gonna add 35 to the X position and 26 to the Y position, and now they're neatly on top of the grid. Nice. Well, a bomb actually explodes after a while, and that means it has a fuse, and there's some built-in functionality for that. You can add a timer with a delayed call, and let's just give it 2048 milliseconds, because I like powers of 2. Call this.explode. No arguments. You can actually just say undefined here. And the callback scope is this, which means that in this function that is called this will be set to this, yeah. So this is actually the this in this scope. Something that it would automatically do if this were a function like this. Man, if you say this enough times. We can remove the timer at this point. it's done. And yeah, destroying will remove the sprite. So let me check real quick. What's going wrong? I'm just gonna disable the log from the movement here because that was kind of spamming up the place. Ah. This does seem the timer is undefined. Oops. Did I do something wrong? Oh wait, it's not timer, it's time. These are the things. There you go. And after about 2 seconds, they remove themselves. Very simple, right? And by doing that, they explode. But you just have to imagine the explosion for now. All right, I think this is enough for the setup for now. Loaded the map player, added movement, added a bomb that explodes after a while. Yeah, this is getting somewhere. So this is all the offline functionality I can basically add for now, I think, before having to move on. Let me check. Yeah, I think it is time to add online functionality a little bit. I already included the socket IO from the beginning, so we haven't been using it yet. Do you guys need a little break, or is it okay if I continue? There's still some ground to cover, but we're gonna. How much time do I have left for this? About 45 minutes or so. It's gonna be tight. Even so, you're still there, or are you in your meeting? I'm guessing he's in a meeting. Less than half an hour. All right, then I'm just going to continue because otherwise we won't be able to finish everything I want to on time. Well, it's time to create the server side then. If WebStorm doesn't crash. Cool, it did. Nice. I already created the server side for listening, but we're going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to copy this from the chat client. Add socket.io support on connection. Saves me some typing. It's connected, and then on disconnect, and just output it, I guess, for now. There. Restart the server for the first time. See if it actually connects automatically. Nope, that is because we haven't initialized it yet in the game. So by adding these few lines to the backend on connection disconnect, that's basically we've said that we now allow socket connections to the server. Like these, what is it? Like 9 lines, including some empty space and some logs. That is enough to say like, okay, we're a multiplayer server now, which is why I like this so much. Like it's so high level, so easy to use. I think it's best to do this after we've set everything up. Oh, it's not what I did in my examples, but I'm gonna do that now. Setting up for socket connections. We're gonna create a socket, and again, this is the IO variable, which is automatically included if you introduced if you include socket.io. That's it. Then it should already create a connection. Yep, it will automatically try to connect to your own server, like your own address and stuff. So that works, and if I refresh it, it disconnects and it reconnects. Perfect. So first off, what we want to do is we want to be able to have the player know that it's actually connected at some point. And then I think the easiest one to implement first is the bombs, like placing them in several locations. So I am going to create a simple onJoined method for now here, or actually a socket function. We're going to emit onJoined, and at this point you know it's connected, so you can just assume it works. And then this basically communicates to the socket that is connecting. So this only lets the currently connecting socket, gives that information only there. It doesn't emit it to everybody. Let the player know its ID. I'm not actually sure if we'll be using that anytime soon, but we'll see. In the game, on the front end, this.socket.on joined. Yeah, we get an ID, a socket ID. And for now, I'm just going to store that locally. This.id equals ID. Yep. And now that we have our cool little spawn bomb method right there, we're calling it right now as soon as the player tries to place one. But let's have the server dictate where the bomb needs to be spawned. So at this point, instead of spawning it directly, we're going to say to the server like, hey, this player is trying to place a bomb. You can call it try place bomb or something. I'm just going to call it on bomb sent to keep in line with the message sent and message received system that we were using in the chat client. So I'm going to emit back to the server on bomb sent, give it an X and a Y position. Then on the server side, going to hook into that socket.on bomb sent. If I'm going too fast, let me know, right? X, Y. And then I'm going to just emit that to all the connected clients, including the one that has just sent it. So basically, you don't immediately place it, similar to how the messages worked yesterday. You just say to the server, like, I'd like to place it. Then the server will say, like, well, I'm going to do that maybe. And this is also where you can include some functionality if you want to do some authorization or something. No, don't do that. No. Probably move this all to one function at some point. So I'm going to emit it here, and then I'm going to listen to it here again on bomb received. Because we won't be the only ones placing bombs, right? So we might as well have a method for it, because the bombs placed by other players are the same as our own bombs. So why not? Is what I ask. Actually, yeah, I can, because it has the same variables, I can just call this spawn bomb, and it will automatically give the X and the Y. So if I refresh it, it probably, oh, it already works. Nice. And immediately places it. Well, there's a slight delay, but you won't notice it because it's on the same computer. It might be like 1 frame or so delayed, but not important. What is cool, however, if we were to change this, for example, to have a delay built in. So I'm going to set a timeout of just 1 second before it sends a message back. So all this does is call this function now after 1 second if I restart the server. So that means that if I place a bomb, it'll take a second before it actually shows up. So this way you can see, like, hey, if there's actually lag, it will place it at the point where I was when I pressed the button, but it'll take a while for it to show up. So yeah, this is basically simulating lag. And this is actually something that happens in multiplayer games a lot, because there's like the ping plus server processing time and all those types of neat stuff. Yeah, I'm going to remove that again, but just to prove to you guys that it's actually the server placing the bomb, not the client. Right. So that would actually mean that if I were to open another window here and place bombs here, oh, I forgot to reload the server, so it has a second delay, but you'll see them show up on the other window as well. Multiplayer. Slightly delayed multiplayer. Right, restart the server, because otherwise it's going to be hella slow. Now it's immediate. You don't see the actual other player yet, but you do see the bombs that he's placing, and the other way around as well. Bomber Ghost. Actually, I mean, you can, like, if you're creative, you can probably think of a way that this could actually be really cool, that you can't see the other players. Which is something you can't do with the normal Bomberman because, you know, it's all played on one screen. It's couch co-op. Next up, I'm going to add the movement, I think. Yep, I'm going to add movement. So this is a relatively simple thing to add. This is also, like, the movement and stuff is also not super difficult. I'm going to go over it a bit faster. The IDE is running low on memory. Yeah, that's probably why it's so slow, isn't it? I'm going to add several functions to this server. First of all, instead of unjoined, I'm going to call this, well, no, this is the one that we'll be calling on ourselves, but I'm also going to add a broadcast. So that means that it sends to everybody except the one that is connecting. On remote player joined. So when I join, everybody else that's connected will get this message that, hey, this guy also joined. On remote player joined. And what else do we need? We want to have something that on player moved. So if a player moves, ID X and Y, we pass in the ID of the player that moved and its new X and Y position. And we're going to broadcast that to everybody else but the one that that did the movement. On remote player moved. And pass along the X and Y. Yeah. Anything else? We can keep track of the players, but we don't really need to for now. Yeah, not really. This is what I get for typing everything out. I'm going to add a new game object. Well, first of all, I'm going to just restart the server because otherwise I'll forget. I'm going to add a remote player object. So this is basically going to be the same as the, you know, local player, but we won't actually be able to control it or interact with it. It's just going to be a remote player extends phaser.physics.arcade.sprite. In fact, I don't think it needs any physics because, well, in this case, we won't be able to run through them if we want to. Scene and an ID. Scene 00 player 52, if I recall. We're going to store the ID in the player. And just to make it more distinct, it's going to look the exact same as our player. So we're going to give it a tint, which is just a hexadecimal code. I'm going to make it red because red means enemy. And give it a quick set position, X and Y. Give it a function to update its position directly. And that is it for now, I think. Yeah, doesn't need to do much more else than that. So it'll look like a player, but it'll be red. And yeah, other than that, it doesn't do anything. It'll be updated remotely. I'm gonna add a function here to the game called add remote player, using the ID of the new player. let remote player be a new remote player with the scene and the ID. Just set it to the spawn location of the of where everybody spawns, which might not be correct initially, but we'll see. Add it to the scene, add an existing one, remote player. And I think we need to store it locally because we want to be updating it later on. So I'm going to add a remote players dictionary here. And we're going to do the same thing on the front end as we did in the back end, basically. This .remote players is based on ID, keep track of the remote player object. There, that was quickly typed, right? Not sure why this doesn't highlight, because I am obviously using it, but I think it is actually pretty low on RAM. It's probably because WebStorm and all the JetBrains stuff runs in Java, which is kind of limited. Let's see, we're going to listen to on remote player joined. Going to try that first, and then we'll add a remote player. Actually, we can try that right now. So if move this one out of the way a little bit, place a bomb, why not? And I add another one. Oh, it doesn't show up. So what goes wrong? Oops. Remote player is not defined. Oh yeah, well that makes sense. Dang it, I warned myself for this. I forgot to include it. Dang it, every time. Facers.phyx is undefined. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. We'll get there at some point. There he is. Doesn't do anything yet, but he shows up all creepily. It is actually kind of creepy. Should probably also include an on player left, because if he joins, he will probably also leave. I might do that later. Actually, no, I'll do that right now. Why not? Left. Join the game. Remove remote player, which does not exist yet. Equals ID. And doesn't have to be too difficult. We're going to check if the ID is in the remote players, just in case like there might be some socket corruption or whatever. By doing this, you're checking basically like, does this key exist in this dictionary? Players ID, and then we're going to delete it. And we're going to destroy it. There. So yeah, if we refresh this one, move out of the way a little bit, open a new window, connect. Yep. And then if we close it again, it will leave as soon as we also implement this on the server side. Did I include on disconnect? I did. Cool. So that means I can just emit to everybody else that is still connected on remote player left. Socket.id. Yeah, that's it. As you can see, it's actually not super difficult to keep adding functionality. I know I'm going through it pretty quick. There he is. And if I close this window, he's gone again. Spooky. But yeah, it's actually not super difficult to do these things. Now let's also have the move, which I already implemented here on player moved, and then it broadcasted to everybody else. So all I have to do, theoretically, is emit an on player moved and right here instead of logging it. This.socket.onPlayerMoved. And obviously the local player will have already moved. Oh, actually, on. The local player will already have moved. So on your screen, it will already be in a different position than it will be slightly delayed for other people. But there are ways to combat that. And I'm not going to go into details on them because it's pretty freaking difficult. Yeah. And while we're at it, let's also add a on remote player moved. This dot move remote player. I like to keep consistency in my naming. No, go away. I don't. There we go. Remove. Move remote player, which has an ID, I think, and an X and a Y position. Oops. Right. You guys still with me? Not going too fast? Am I mesmerizing you? First check if it actually, if the key is in the remote players, and then yeah, do the same thing as this one. Retrieve it. Remote player dot X equals X. Remote player dot Y equals Y. And that's it, I guess. Yeah, we're just gonna place it in a location, no animations. Refresh this one, open a new window. Connects. Oh wait, did I restart the server? Probably did not. It's not moving. What did I do wrong? It is connecting, disconnecting. Did I actually include on remote player moved? Yeah. See if it actually gets the message as well when I move. It does not. Welcome to Debugging 101. This gets called, right? On the front end. Yep. Yeah, that gets called. Cool. On player moved. Does not get called. At least it doesn't seem to. Am I running the correct index? Well, this is interesting. Yeah, send it to all clients except the extender. Anybody see? I probably made a typo somewhere. Anybody catch that? Socket broadcast. This one is not being called on player moved. Not necessary. Yeah, the bomb placement still works, so the socket connection is fine. Maybe this.id is not set. Interesting. Obviously, it also always happens when you're trying to demonstrate something. No, this seems all fine. No, it has to do with the socket not connecting to it. Maybe I should refresh my cache. Nothing. Maybe I should set up the socket connections before, just in case. Because I think it might not exist in scope, which is weird, because it should. For blind person using emit, for this one using on. Am I? Yeah, I'm using. But this this method is not called on player move. This callback, not even called. It seems. Or you mean in the front end? Oh, you're right. Oh my god. Thanks. You're a lifesaver, Jorrit. What a catch. My god, I kept reading over it as well. You're right. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, welcome to programming. All right, so yeah. That was stupid. That's what you get for typing. Like, oh, there he goes. Now he moves. If I add another one, he also moves. But as you may have noticed, yeah, the other players are missing for now. We don't have that much time left, but I'm just going to keep going. So what I'm going to do is we now have the movement, the bomb placing, the joining, and the leaving. And now I want it to be synced all over the place. No, you were, yeah, no, you caught it. You were right. And I kept looking over it as well because I'm expecting either on or emit and just not realizing that they were in the wrong place. Right, we're going to finish this up. I might go a little bit over time. I don't know if you guys are in a hurry, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to be sure to. Oh, yeah, true, because otherwise it just stores it in the local database. And you can actually see it. But I wouldn't actually see it because it wasn't actually an error. It's just stupid from me. I'm going to keep track of the players. No, don't do that. The same way we did in the chat client. Socket.id equals socket. And this is also where you can keep track of usernames and stuff if you liked. Then as soon as you join, for right now, I'm only giving you the socket ID, but I also want to give you all the other players that are connected. So in this case, it's just the keys of the players, which are all the socket IDs, which means that this could just be a list of players, but it doesn't matter too much. Also means that when somebody leaves now, we'll have to delete them. Rough, I know. Yep, that's it. So there's some other functionality that we need to include that we'll be using later on death. When a player dies, I'm going to broadcast that to everybody else on remote player death with the ID. So we have movement, bombs, joining. Yeah, I think this is it for the simple variant of the game. Start the server. So in the front end, we're already keeping track of the remote players. We also need to keep track of ourselves later on, but for now, move players. Yeah, we basically have, but the joint server function is now slightly different because it also gets all of the remote IDs, all the player IDs, including our own, which is good to know. So instead of just adding our own ID, we're gonna loop over index is smaller than all player IDs, which is just a list. And if it's not all player IDs index equal to our own ID, or actually if it is equal to our own ID, we're going to continue, which skips this iteration. And otherwise, we're going to add a remote player. So this means that on player joined is basically not necessary anymore. I mean, you could still leave it in, but it will actually double players up. Yes, 3 equal signs. Welcome to JavaScript. Equal just checks if the type is similar, not necessarily if the value is similar. So if you have 3 equals, that checks if the type and the value are similar. Yes, that's what you get with the type looseness. You get that free with it. Yeah, that is a moment for sure. Oops. Oh gosh. Oh, I made an error in the, it's called object. There we go. So if I were to connect somebody else, like this boy, well, it has added the remote player here, so that's good. This one didn't show up. Oh wait, because I forgot. Obviously, we still need the, I'm an idiot. We still need this one because if players join after you've joined, you still want them to show up. This guy and this guy. It's not moving. That is okay for now. So we'll be adding that in a bit. Add another one. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. All right. What Theodore said, actually, that is exactly true. Because yeah, it checks based on value type, and yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that can go wrong with that. On joins, yeah, we can make that into our own function later on. On bomb received, while we're at it, let's make the bombs little. Add a remote player. Is there, want to be able to kill a remote player? Moving remote players. Yeah. This seems fine. So yeah, let's make the bombs lethal. So when it explodes now, it basically doesn't do anything. And we're going to make it not do anything, but also emit an unexplode with the current X and Y position. So let you know, like, hey, it exploded right around here. Then in the game, when we spawn a bomb, which should probably be renamed add bomb, but whatever. We're going to listen to the on explode with the X and Y position. And what we're going to do is we're going to check the distance between the bomb and the player. So I'm not keeping track of the player yet, so I should do that. This.player equals null. And we create a player here, and all the while at the end, I'm going to store it here. So what happens is basically only the client check if you can die. So this is very easy to take advantage of if you want to cheat. You just overwrite the kill method that we're going to write. But don't do that. That's not cool. Not cool, bro. Kill equals this. It's another function. Gonna say this is dead is true. We're gonna tint ourselves nice and black to indicate that we're now post-mortem. Gonna stop our velocity in case we were moving when we died, because otherwise it'll just keep moving. Make sure we're not allowed to remove key. Make sure we're not allowed to place bombs anymore after death, and we're gonna emit death. By default, we are not dead. We are alive. And I think the only place where we actually have to check it is here in the update. So if this dot is dead, return. Just stop this method entirely. By default, we are not dead. Well, actually, I don't know if that's actually true in real life. I don't know if we start out. I don't know. I don't remember anything before I was born, so maybe we do start out dead. Yeah, if a bomb explodes close to a player, we disable the functionality. I'm just going to test this locally. Bing, you become black, not able to move anymore, and not able to place bombs anymore. Yeah, talk about existential crises. So yeah, if the bomb explodes within 100 pixels of us, we kill the player, which then emits an on death on the player. Which means that we need to communicate that to the rest of the server as well. Player.on death. Actually, no variables here. Just emit it on death with our own ID, which the server already catches and then casts out an unremote player death, which we have to hook up back in our socket. This socket on remote player death. And I think the easiest thing to do is just I'll create a function for it. Oops. This on remote kill remote player. Just an ID. All it has to do is check if it exists, and if it does, call kill on it. Because it's a remote player, it doesn't have any functionality we have to disable. No, this seems fine. We just have to make sure that the remote player is also able to be killed. And because the other guy, like the actual player, the client, is not able to move it around anymore, unless he's cheating, this should be enough. Just set tint. Just make it black. If a remote player dies, just make it black, and that's it. Not sure why this is all red seas. Well, it doesn't give an error, so I guess WebStorm is just behind on its updating. Remote player joined. There he is. Oh yeah, that is a thing. By the way, the original positions are not updated yet, but whatever. If this guy plays a bomb here, that does kill him. Cool. So you can't kill your remote enemies, and I can't move them around anymore. I can't just refresh, obviously. Plays a bomb there. Cool. Well, at least they are able to kill the remotes, but there is something going wrong still with the remote connections. Let's see if I have everything on death on move on bomb placed. Yes. Joined. Bomb received, yes. Player joined. Also the on joined server, basically. Remote player death. Player left, joined and moved. What did I forget? I forgot something. Well, hey, where'd my NPM go? Start it. Move this guy over here. Move this guy here. Okay, yeah. So it doesn't update the position initially, because, well, it joins the server, but it doesn't know the position of the player. And this is actually a relatively simple improvement that you can make in the server side here. As soon as a player joins, give it the initial position, or like instead of just updating the X and Y position on player moved, here we can also include the player's position. So we have to pass that along as soon as you connect and stuff. But yeah, that helps a little bit if you join the game later. You have to keep track of the positions that the players have. And actually, yeah, you can do that. Like right here, now we keep a track of the socket. But if we were to keep track of a player object that has an X, a Y, and a socket, we're not actually using the socket, but whatever. Then every time a player moves here, we can retrieve the player by ID, and then set the X to X and the Y to Y. Yeah, we can like store it locally, well, remotely / locally as well. So that means that you're keeping track of the players on the server as well, which you can then use that when you join a game, you can broadcast that out instead of just like, hey, there are 4 other people. You can say like, hey, there are 4 other people and these are their positions. I'm going to remove this again because it'll break my server for now. But that is actually a very valid way of keeping track of it. And it's probably basically necessary at some point. So we can move around both of them, place a bomb here. Not sure if it's close enough. Yeah, and it kills the other guy, which is now not able to move anymore. I think this is as far as we're going to go. Death. I'm going to upload this code to GitHub so you can have a look through it by yourself, slightly more calmly. Kill remote player, add remote player, remove. Yeah, this is all the functionality. This is all the assets as well that you might be using later on. Yep, very neat. This is using. This is the one that I've made yesterday evening. I'm not sure why this version, or like the other version, wasn't updating correctly. I think it has to do with the cache, so I just restarted it from scratch. But this has everything. Yeah, that's the key name. Yeah. No, this should be fine. There's a bunch of optimizations you can make. There's a bunch of ways that you can also like optimize all the calls that are being made. But this is like up to, I'd say, 8 people, no problem. Like the delay is minimal, like maybe 0.02 milliseconds, so maybe like 1 or 2 frames behind. Very playable. You often, especially if you're playing on remote servers that are not in Europe, for example, if you're European, you'll often have more than that in lag, like 34 milliseconds or something. And if you're on the same network, it's basically negligible because packages almost never get lost within the same network because the router knows exactly where it needs to go, and it's almost as fast as you would have with UDP. UDP is still faster though. But now we have the guarantee that there's no package loss and no out of sync information. So if you want to make a simple multiplayer game, so you want to play with your roommates or but on your own devices. And another cool part is that Phaser runs on mobile phones, especially Android really well, but iOS also runs it with, but you have to use touches instead of mouse, I think, input. So you can make games that you can play together on your same network on your mobile phone. I, for example, well, I haven't had friends over in a while, not because I'm lonely, but because there's just not that many people allowed over now. I have a little Raspberry Pi running this because the server is so small. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi, and yeah, you can just go to the Pi in your local network and play a game together on your phone. Oh, hi, Evans. Welcome back.
I was watching it.
Thank- yeah. That's when you rejoin, right?
No, I was here before. I was just quiet.
Okay, cool. It's like as soon as I started incriminating myself, he shows back up. Yeah, bunch of improvements to be made, but I think this is more than enough to get you guys started if you were so inclined. Like I said, you can run it on a Raspberry Pi or whatever, and you can have people join on their phones. Sockets are also very, very suited to turn-based stuff. So if you want to make like a poker game or anything card-based, because they're all turn-based, right? You can very easily make that. And then you have a digital version of poker or something. Yeah. I hope this was informational to you guys. Like I said, I'll put this on GitHub later today, and I'll make sure to share the link. Actually, github.com/something with computers. That's me. It'll show up here in case you forget. Something with computers is is the name of my company. Oh, it actually shows the link. Cool. That's why I've been using this. I don't use GitHub much, only for stuff that I want to share with the outside world. I use Bitbucket mostly for my own projects, but yeah. Well, haven't done many contributions this year. Actually, that's not true. I've done a bunch of stuff for other projects. Pull requests. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I hope this was useful, guys. Are there any questions that you need answers to? Cool. Yeah, I hope it didn't go too fast. They were on private projects, actually. Yeah. Then they don't show up here? Actually, I have another GitHub account. That might be the reason why as well.
A GitHub account.
Yeah, just a personal one.